Hi everyone, thanks for stopping by Pete's Garage. Well, it's time to put the trunk latch in the trunk, but of course I'm not going to do it the way the instructions say. Alright, for the latch, this is what they recommend. You got to go inside the trunk, carve out a big hole, carve out a bunch of holes for the screws, and mount the latch inside the trunk lip. That means in order to release this, you need a cable that comes around. And this is the cable they give you. So you got this handle, you'd have a handle inside the passenger compartment, you pull the handle, and the handle would open the latch, and the latch would release from the catch. The catch is bolted to the trunk floor, and then they show routing this cable into the back of the, behind the seat. It looks like behind the driver's seat where you'd pull that, and you can see the latch would be inside the trunk here, with a lot of it cut out. Now, I'm not really too keen about that. Here's a picture I have. I saw one of these recently. Here's the latch in the bottom of the trunk floor. You can see the big bolt there, and then you can see the wire that has to run, the cable. The cable runs along the hinge, and you also need electricity for the license plate light. So you have all these wires hanging out. I really don't like that. So I'm going to do something a little different here. That means we have this latch, and this latch would basically get mounted in the back of the trunk here. Right here, back of the trunk, and I'd have to cut this big hole in here to get this mounted in here, big hole, and then this would stick through, and then you'd have room underneath here for your where the striker would come through, and in essence on the bottom you'd have this big striker, and this big striker bolt would stick out. And I really don't want to do that, because I really don't want to have these wires and the cable that are going to have to come down here and go through there. I don't want all these cables hanging down here. So I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to do it the other way. I'm going to mount the latch inside the floor of the trunk. This will basically come down. It'll catch like that. And then in order to release it, you have to have something to release it. And I'm going to do this with an electric solenoid. But first, I have to see what kind of clearance I have, where that bolt or where that striker would end up inside the trunk. So I got to close the trunk and take some video while the trunk is closed. Alright, that means if I mount it right here to the face of that, it'll end up in here somewhere, which is pretty far in. I can move it back at least a good inch, which means I'll be able to drill a hole here and either put a plate on the bottom or put a screw on the inside. So I got a stop screw and a jam nut. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole, and we'll see where it ends up when it comes down. I don't want it to hit this lip here, so I think if I move it back, probably going to move it back an inch or so, which means this will move back an inch or so. So I'm going to try that, and we'll see what happens. So I made this nut plate. Just a nut plate that this will screw into. It's just a nut welded back onto this plate here, and I just got to mount it into the bottom of the trunk door. So what did all that work buy me? Now, when this is locked, I have access to the mechanism there so I can pull it from the bottom to unlock the latch. Cut the handle off, now it's nice and clean. When I lock it, I can actuate it from underneath instead of having to have that big handle on the side. Now for the hard part. I have to actually mark the holes for that bracket on the inside of the trunk with the trunk closed and the latch lined up with the striker. I can't do that, so luckily I'm going to use my gymnastic daughter. So what did I gain from all that work? Well, first of all, this big handle that's supposed to go inside, I think it's supposed to go inside the passenger compartment or somewhere. That would have to run along this hinge or along here somewhere, and have this cable along the hood. And I really didn't like that, so now I don't have to use that. I can just put this underneath, and I can open the trunk just by pulling this, and that'll be underneath the back of the car. Now the second thing is I don't have to have the big hook here. The hook is mounted underneath the trunk lid itself, and I made this cover just as a mock-up to see what it would look like. But I'll smooth this out, round it out to shape it to the contour of the trunk of the back of the lip, and I'll round this off to make it look really nice. And when you carpet the inside of this whole thing, that'll blend right in, and all you have is a little slot for the catch to go in, and it works great. That's almost the last item complete. I think all I have to do is put the oil cooler on up front and make a shroud for the oil cooler inside the front, and I'll be all done. I'll be ready to do the body work and start doing the painting. Thanks for stopping by Pizza Garage.